What's up, people? I am back for another video. Today we're finally doing the finale of the Planet of the Apes, or I guess you want to call it like the newer Planet of the Apes trilogy. We're doing War for the Planet of the Apes, which I remember seeing in theaters when it came out, and I liked it, but it was the weakest. I mean, I still think that, but man, it is much better than I remember it being. I love the change with Caesar where almost he was straight up almost becoming like Koba. It made sense though. Because the Colonel, obviously it picks up where Dawn left off, where the people from the military from the north is coming down, and it basically starts looking, because now it's all out war, like the title says. The Colonel, who has his own, he basically, basically the Colonel has his own group, they're called the Alpha Omega, which it goes more into, like, they mention his son and all what this war meant. That's why I like the Colonel, played by Woody Harrelson. It's probably, this might be my favorite Woody Harrelson role. Like, don't get me wrong, I love him in White Men Can't Jump and Money Train, which he did both with Wesley Snipes. Like, I love those movies, but I'm sorry, Woody Harrelson was fucking incredible in this movie. And Zombieland. Like, I can understand those being your choices for, more specifically, White Men Can't Jump or Zombieland being your best Woody Harrelson movie. But I'm sorry, him in this is incredible. He is almost as good as Koba in terms of being a villain. The Colonel was perfect, man. That scene, you first see him, Caesar shows up, and you just see this dude in, like, camo paint, right? War paint. Starts shooting. All you see is his son and wife just dead. You know, blue eyes, and his, mom and his wife dead. That's all you see. So, such a perfect way to introduce the Colonel. And then Caesar basically just wants revenge. And, obviously, throughout the film, so, throughout the film, he wants to get to the colony. He wants revenge on the Colonel. Along the way, he finds, like, a little girl who, they kill a guy, like one of the abandoned things, but they end up finding a little girl, so they end up, like, taking her, like, to raise her, so they don't just leave her. But also throughout the film, Caesar becomes much more, not necessarily anti-human, but he does go more, he's more about rage, and it makes sense. He lost his wife and his eldest son, He still has his, like, newborn, who's still alive, but throughout the film, we find out that Colonel has his own apes called donkeys, which we find out are the apes that worked with Koba. So a lot of I love that, just the way they looked into, like, kind of like the second one, where it acknowledges, like, both sides are bad. Because, the reason these apes that are the donkeys, the only reason they're working with Colonel is so they want revenge on Caesar. That's all this is about. Granted, towards the end, the main donkey does sort of turn in the end, like, once we get to the final battle, but the final battle's great, and then obviously Caesar's death, which was done so fucking well. Even the Colonel, who almost, like, he does have, I'm not going to say a sympathetic reason, but they don't he's not just pure evil. Like, he doesn't just hate apes or something. They did make him a little bit more complicated. Because of the disease, he had to kill his own son, because the disease that kind of started everything, unfortunately drove most people, obviously, primitive. And what's so fucking frustrating, and not just about this movie perfectly gives the perfect alley-oop for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. There's a scene where the Colonel mentions that he knew that the apes would take over, because he says, there's going to be a point where we're going to be the dumb ones, and then the apes are going to take over and going to be the slaves to the apes. which kind of alludes to obviously the Planet of the Apes we eventually see. And the fucking kingdom just drops the fucking ball. So I'll be honest a little bit, guys. There is going to be a little bit of a point where I do rage about Kingdom and the Planet of the Apes in this, because it is frustrating, just because this movie has like the perfect alley that sets that up, that scenario up. You know, the simian, like, we find out like what the simian flu did to everyone, including his own son, and he had no choice but to kill him. And you do sort of feel for him, you know. And then towards the end, though, the Colonel, you know, because the Colonel gets infected with the flu towards the end of the movie, so he decides instead of killing him, let the Colonel do it to himself. So like, the Colonel doesn't necessarily like just get burned in the end. So I'm not gonna say redeemed. I'm not gonna use that word, but I do like that they did make him a little bit complex. They didn't just, I mean, he is a bad guy, but he's not like how modern Hollywood would do it, just make him flat out sympathetic. Like, no, they made him a little bit of a complex character, and throughout the film, you do like Caesar does hallucinate Koba like throughout the movie a couple of times, so it was kind of cool to have a little bit of Koba in the film. There's no real human characters you follow, like not like in the second and even the first one. There were like human characters you kind of know. In this one, it is very much, I would argue, it's more of a Caesar movie. Like they do find a little girl named Nova later on, because when they get to this part, it's like a human part. The guy who's there tries to shoot at the apes, he gets killed, but they find the little girl, and Maurice befriends her, so they take her along. But there's no real human characters you follow that I guess you want to say are good humans. But overall, great film, great score. The way this film is built, it is a little long. I would say my only criticism, you could have probably trimmed 10 minutes and made it 2 hours and 10 instead of 2 hours and 20, but it doesn't feel boring. Like, so it's a little criticism, but arguably I love this movie. I love Caesar's art throughout it. The world is perfect. It really, like I said, they give a perfect alley for where potentially, if Kingdom didn't fuck it up, where we could have gone, where what the next logical progression was. And I felt like this one just, not this movie, but this one had the setup and they just fucked it up in the next one. But overall, War for the Planet of the Apes is great. I gave Dawn is my favorite of the trilogy. I think Rise is probably the best film in terms of film, but I think I love Dawn. I love the like post-apocalyptic feel. This kind of still has that, but just I think the look at the apes, Koba as a villain, I think this one's almost as good. I think I would give this one like, I'd probably give Rise like a 9.5, and then I think Rise and Dawn I'd give both 9.5, and then this one I would give like a 9. I still think this is very much a good film. I think it's much better than I remember. I think at the time I gave it like an 8. Still good. I just didn't think it was as good as the other two. But I think this one's much better than I remember it being. Because holy shit, the Woody Harrelson as the fucking Colonel is so fucking good. That introduction of him, because all you see is Blue Eyes and his wife Cornelia just dead, and Caesar's reaction, it was perfect. I think the score was good. I just think all around, like, you know. And then don't get me wrong, you feel for the apes when they're in prison, because, you know, they're all separated. And granted, they could have gone overly, like, on the nose, like, Holocaust, like, fucking references, but they didn't do that, thankfully. But they just, you know, they showed what the world was like, and this is a full-out war now. You know? But overall, I love this movie. Kind of wish, it really is sad, though, that just that Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes just fucking fumbles the ball. But overall, this is a great movie. Be honest with you, I kind of can't wait to do the OG, because it has been a minute since I've seen the OG Planet of the Apes, and I'm not gonna lie. Probably the tagline for the video is gonna be "Damn you all to hell, you damn dirty ape," or either "Damn you all to hell," or like "Get your hands off me, you damn dirty ape." Hopefully YouTube doesn't be a bitch and obviously think, cause you know how fucking climate is now. YouTube might think I'm talking about like black people, even though I'm a black person, you know. But I'm sorry, like it's gonna be one of those that's gonna be like probably the tagline. I can't wait to rewatch the original. So, but I think this trilogy all around is perfect. This is an example of how to bring a franchise back, or like, you know, reboot it and do it well. So I think all around the new Planet of the Apes trilogy is perfect. Rise, Dawn, and then War, all great. All great. Dawn, like I said, Dawn's my favorite, but Rise is really good, and then I think this one's still pretty good. So, tomorrow I'm gonna look for a CBR article. I normally do Screen Rant, but be honest with you guys, Screen Rant's been fucking. I haven't found anything interesting to talk about with Screen Rant, so I'm gonna see what CBR. So maybe tonight or tomorrow I'll look into CBR articles and I'll see what cringe I can find with that. So, but anyways, guys, if not, I'll do something else tomorrow. Maybe I'll figure out if I can't find anything CBR, I might just scratch up something to review. Who knows? You know what? I don't know what I'm gonna do. If I don't find a screenwriter article, what I might do is tomorrow I might do Bad Boys 3. If I don't find a screenwriter article to roast, I'll just do Bad Boys 3. But anyway, just to round out the Bad Boys movies. So, anyways, guys, let's get to the video. Let's get started. So, War for the Planet of the Apes starts. I love the title that just almost goes through each movie. Like they would highlight in red the title, like it starts with Rise, then Dawn, which would both be highlighted in red, and then goes into War. Such a cool opening. Couple of years now, it's 2 years later. after basically the events of Dawn. The Alpha Omega, which is an U.S. Army battalion, is called by the North, which they referenced, obviously, the end of the second movie. And basically, we get a big battle in the opening, which, I'll be honest, I love that opening battle, where they attack, but the apes manage to kind of fight off, and we see Caesar spare most of the military, though they do. He mentions that some of the apes, because initially it looks like the team has control of the fight, right? Because it turns out the Alpha Omega have their own apes, and they call donkeys, which basically we find out work for Koba. And they basically just they're using this as an opportunity. Yeah, it's a little bit of a, I guess you can almost call it, you'd have to suspend disbelief, because if you remember, the whole point of Koba's group is that they hated humans. So for them to just work with humans is a stretch, but for me, it's okay, because the way I see it, they hate Caesar more. That's how I saw it personally. And they know Caesar killed their leader, so they're like, you know what, fuck it. These guys are gonna kill the apes, so fuck it. These are Caesar's apes. These aren't Koba's anymore. Fuck them. So that's how I see it. They just cared more about getting back at Caesar. So Caesar kind of basically gives a little bit of what's been going on. Mentions about what happened with Koba, talking to the other soldiers. And he actually spared the soldier's life because he ultimately still just wants one goal. He just wants to protect his I'm not going to say people, but his apes in his home. That's all. He doesn't want war. Even throughout the film, he's never really, like the films, he's not wanted war. That was always the point. It was always somebody else starting it. So he basically lets Colonel's people live. And then, so the next day, this is where Blue Eyes comes home. They return from an exposition, and they basically, turns out they're looking for a new home. And then that's when we get basically we get an attack, but it turns out is all just a diversion. Because all it was just a diversion they end up finding, he hears gunshots from where his wife and children are sleeping, and that's when we get our first shot of the Colonel. He's just in the military camo war paint on his face. It's such a perfect introduction. You got the waterfall in the background. He points his gun and shoots. Because all Caesar does, he walks and you got the music playing, which is great. And then he just looks over and he sees his son and his wife dead. That's all he sees. His oldest son, by the way, not the new one that was born in the last film. That's... And we do get a King Kong is dead, which was kind of nice little Easter egg reference to King Kong. And yeah, Caesar tries to get Colonel when Colonel repels up, but the Colonel cuts the rappel, or like the part where Caesar's at and Caesar falls into the water. So it turns out, because he mentions this later, he didn't intend on killing, he meant to kill Caesar. He didn't mean to kill his wife and kid. He thought that was Caesar. So, not, that's what makes this character not complex, but a little complex in the sense of he's not just, I'm evil and I hate apes. Because they could have just gone that route with it and just had him be generic bad guy who just hates apes. And I thought that wouldn't have worked. I like that they gave the Colonel a bit of character. Obviously, but they didn't go too far with it to make him, like, sympathetic either, though. Like, he's still a bad guy, and he still does bad things, but he also, like, we find out he kills his own people. Because I'll jump ahead. Probably one of probably the more iconic shots of this movie is when you see Caesar on horseback in the snow. And throughout, when they're looking for the Colonel's colony. They see dead bodies, including one of the people that Caesar released earlier, shot. Because we find out that the Colonel kills his own people, which gets mentioned later. So, I really love, they don't make this guy like some good guy. But he's not just like generic, I just hate apes, I'm bad, So now Caesar wants war, so he decides to, so he finds his son Cornelius is still alive, who was born from the last movie. So he decides to leave the tribe, tells the tribe to go to their new location while he goes on his own mission to look for the Colonel. Because he's going to act as a decoy, but he also wants revenge. So Rocket, Maurice, and Luca do come with Caesar, even though you basically were told not to. But obviously they're loyal. So they end up they find like one of the colonel's camps, and this is where they see Winter, who was he's one of the apes you see earlier in the film. He's like an albino gorilla, who actually is one of the donkeys. He ends up killing Winter because Winter reveals that he was the one who told the colonel. Because there's a scene earlier where he didn't like how Caesar was doing things, so he turned on the colonel, on Caesar. So Caesar does start to he does throughout the film start to get much more aggressive, because of what happened to his wife. So he's losing it almost. He's almost if he was a human character, he would just be losing it. And it makes sense. You're blinded by revenge. That's the point. Granted, I think to an extent revenge can be a good thing, depending on what it's for, obviously. But it can, if you're too blinded by, you might eventually, sometimes you lash out at your own people. And I think that's what this movie was really trying to highlight, because, there's a scene later, he lashes out a couple times. So I like that the movie does that. It shows you, Caesar's a flawed character, and that's what makes him a great character, even though he's an ape. That's what, and I'm going to say it again, too, the effects in these movies are all great. Because I think if we're going pure effects, this is probably the best one of the three. The apes look fucking real in this movie. The ape effects look incredible. And he ends up killing Winter, because Winter reveals he's the one who revealed the location of their home, which in turn obviously causes, because he basically almost sees that Winter had something to do with his wife, family, his death, wife and son's death. So, and we at the camp they find a little girl named Nova who's mute, who Maurice kind of takes a liking to. So they take her in. Obviously, they're not going to just leave her by herself in the camp. So she comes with them, and this is the scene where they find out that Colonel's been killing his own troops. Because this is the scene in the snow, which the cinematography in this film is amazing. The scene when, at the going back to the attack at the camp, when the Colonel's first introduced, the cinematography, they're clearly using a drone. So they're just a lot of those shots. I'm that's fucking amazing. The cinematography is just well done. The snow in this movie, granted, I wish the final fight was in the snow, but I do love the part where they're in the snow. I just think visually it just looked fucking awesome. So this is where they meet another ape named Bad Ape, who apparently is probably one of the first intelligent apes. I'll admit he's probably the only criticism I have in the movie. I found his character kind of annoying. Maybe if he didn't actually talk, but I get it. They were trying to say he's one of the first intelligent apes like Caesar. But I found his character kind of annoying at times. Maybe if they gave him a different voice, it wouldn't be so bad. I didn't care for the voice personally. I found him annoying at times, but it's all right. I guess he's not it's a criticism, but it doesn't ruin the movie. And it's only in certain scenes. He gets better a little bit. I'll admit, at first I found him annoying, especially with the first time. I don't think it wasn't as bad the second time, but I'll admit I found him a little annoying. I just was God, this fucking character. But they end up helping him because they want to look for the weapons facility which we end up finding out that's where the Colonel is at now. And they end up seeing that the apes are all in captured pens. Um, Caesar tries to infiltrate the base, and this is where he's caught um, and captured. And then I'm just gonna kind of jump to where they take him to Caesar to the militia, but also we see the colonel, like our first real scene with the colonel, and the colonel goes into like the back and forth between Caesar and the colonel is so well done. You know, because he goes to the simian virus and then like because Caesar even mentions like I gave you mercy, I let your people go, the and then we kind of find out the real reason, and this is what leads into him saying, you know, he even acknowledged that we try to play God, you know, when we created that virus, you know, so he acknowledges humanity fucked up, and that we've been paying for it ever since, and that the reason the people are mute is that virus. Once you're infected by it, you're mute. It basically, even the way he describes it is perfect. It takes away that everything that makes us human. So everything that normally, you know, our intelligence, our speech, all that's taken away, and we're basically just reverses, almost like caveman, almost in a way. And that's why this film is so fucking not this. I can't remember. Okay, it's not this film. I love this film. I meant to say why Kingdom is so frustrating. This one was setting that up clearly. They were going in the direction of why humans mostly were mute, didn't speak, weren't smart, really. Because the simian virus was supposed to get worse. And obviously, even in this scene, the Colonel, he like mentions, you apes are going to take over and we're going to become the slaves, essentially. You know, it's basically him referencing what ends up happening in the Planet of the Apes that we know. You know, the apes are in charge, the humans are, you can't talk, and are the slaves, essentially. And the fact that this film gave you an alley-oop and the Kingdom just fucking drops the ball. Bad. Noah with this boring fucking character who just has nothing about him. Why not just make it Cornelius, who's Caesar's son? Just fucking have it be Cornelius, who grows up by the end. Like in the start, it's about Caesar's son. You just jump ahead a little bit. And in this one, it could be the world where it is more like the Planet of the Apes that we know. The apes are in charge, humans are enslaved. This film was literally setting that up. Like, you could clearly tell that's what the direction was. I don't think they were ever planning on doing another movie, but you could tell they were gearing that up to go more that direction of the Planet of the Apes we know. But fucking Kingdom just fucking fumbles the ball hard. You know, Proximus could have been a really good villain, you know, for the next film. You know, and you could have really gone into, because I love that aspect about Planet of the Apes. The whole point is, it is interesting to see, like, okay, the apes are the ones in charge, and the humans are the slaves. You know, you want to see how that dynamic works. So, in the fact that this movie, like, really sets that up, you know, especially in this scene, I'd argue this scene, when it, you know, him telling Caesar about the virus and what it causes, like, that's why we also find out why he killed his own people. A lot of it is because once he did it, because he had no choice but to do it to his own son, which obviously made him harder. He realized his mission is you have to do that with the rest of them. You know, no matter if they were your friends or not. Because he didn't want any carriers to infect others. And then there was some of his he goes into like the superiors think. So basically, he's the crazy one, and almost he even mentions that if they come here, they're gonna come here to kill me. So, So Caesar gets tortured. Basically, tells me he doesn't even get food and all that. So the next day, the apes basically stage an escape, um, because they managed to kill one of the colonel's people. While this is going on, the military attacks the facility, and they kind of just shoot everything. We get a big shootout, and Caesar goes to kill the colonel, but the doll that he confiscated from the little girl earlier turns out is infected with the virus. So he's infected with the virus now, and it turns out, and basically Caesar decides, almost kind of goes back to the Caesar we more know, and it's much more about forgiveness and isn't just straight up killing. And oh, I should have mentioned, throughout the film, like, Caesar sees Koba, and Koba constantly mentions apes are gonna die. You know, I was like, in his head, like the scenes when he's like tied up and all that, he would, in his dreams or hallucinate, he would see Koba. So that was kind of cool. It was a cool way to have Koba in the movie, but not have him actually in the film. Granted, I would have not minded if they had Koba somehow survive. I think it would have been cheesy, but him survive, because I would have liked to see Koba's dynamic with the Colonel. I think that would have been very much an interesting dynamic to have seen in the movie, but it's fine. I'm okay with them sticking to their guns. He died. You know. So Caesar allows the Colonel to kill himself. So Red, who's like one of the main gorillas throughout the film, who's like kind of tortured Caesar, who even said earlier in the film that they worked for Koba. But then he starts seeing like the apes other apes getting killed. He has a change of heart, obviously he ends up killing Preacher. He's the guy who throughout the film has the crossbow. Yeah, because the Preacher has Caesar basically dead to rights, about to kill him. So they kill Preacher, which then Red gets killed. Caesar blows the fuel tank, which, Barry causes an avalanche. So we get a nice little last moment with this. The way this movie ended is pretty sad, because you just got like Maurice and everyone. They get to their new oasis, so they make it home. They make it there, but they realize Caesar has a wound, because Caesar has a moment with Maurice, but he has a wound that's basically like life threatening, and he promises to and basically, Maurice makes a promise that his son will know, that Caesar's son will know what his father did. Which, that's what makes the next one also so frustrating. Why the fuck couldn't you just make it Cornelius the main character? It would have made, about that time that one came out, Cornelius would have been about the right age. You could have had him be the next main character. Why the fuck Noah? You know what I mean? Anyway. So Caesar's basically peacefully just, kind of dies, just succumbs to his injuries. Such a sad way to end, man, and the music that plays, and just perfect way to end this trilogy, man. And I think it's a perfect film, and I think all of them are great. And the fact that this one's like ends perfect, it's kind of a sad ending too. Like, because when I saw it, I'm not gonna lie, there were some people that cried. I heard a couple people crying when I saw this in the theater when it came out at the time. I don't blame people. Like, it is pretty sad. Like, Caesar's death is done very well. He dies kind of like peacefully, with his friend Marie, with his, longtime best friend who's like been his main man throughout his side, of Caesar. And Maurice has always been a great constant throughout the three films. Really, he's introduced in the second one, but I would really in the first one, but I would more say the second and third one especially. You really feel their friendship, and Maurice is there for everything. So for Caesar to just tragically die, it was done so well, man. I love this film. The Colonel's a great villain. Who almost not gonna say he didn't have a heroic death, but he was able to just kind of peacefully kill himself. It wasn't like they had like a big because they could have gone the way you think they go, and you could have like a big fight between the Colonel and Caesar, but they didn't go that route because they had like Caesar go through an arc. Like there's a scene he lashes out at like some of his people because he's blinded by revenge, and I think that was kind of the point of this film. And yeah, man, I think this is a great one. Better than I remember it being, to be honest. And yeah, I fucking love it. Perfect way to end the trilogy. Caesar, goes out like a G. You feel bad for him. I didn't, I was sad when he first. I was sad watching it yesterday, but I was like, when I watched it the first time, I was like, damn, man. Caesar's such a great character throughout these three films, and just. And you feel bad for Caesar's wife, man. Like when he sees his wife and son, oldest son, just dead. The Colonel's introduction was just so perfect. Yeah, man, Woody Harrelson really played his ass off in this movie. This one, I think, goes in a perfect direction, perfectly ends it, perfect score. The cinematography's perfect. The mute girl was okay. You can almost... I've seen some criticism of her character saying, like, you could almost write her out of the movie, but I'm okay with it, because the way I see it, it's to set up the direction where the movie was, the next logical direction of the movie. Which is going to be about, the next step, which is that, the humans are going to be mute because of the simian flu, and they're going to be back to being primitives, and the apes are going to be evolved. That was the whole point. That's kind of what this was clearly setting up. Not necessarily the next film, but the next step of the Planet of the Apes was going to be that. That's what this was kind of setting up. So, that's why Kingdom, I'm just going to say it again, was so just sad that wasn't good, because this one gave that one such an alley-oop, and they just dropped the ball hard. But anyway, I love War for the Planet of the Apes. This is a perfect trilogy. I say watch them. Watch the three movies. They're all great. I don't think there's a bad one in the mix at all. Like, I think they're all great. Rise, Dawn, War. I think Dawn's my favorite of the three, but they're all great. So this one's a 9 out of 10. I think the score is phenomenal. Andy Serkis plays his ass off. The effects look great. Yeah. Anyways, guys, I'm going to call it here. Tomorrow, I'm either going to be doing a CBR article. I'll put something on Twitter about what I'm going to do. If I don't find a CBR article, I'll just do I'll just review Bad Boys 3. I'll look early enough in the day. I'm not going to wait too late. I'm going to try to look up early enough in the day so I'll have time to watch Bad Boys 3 if I end up having to do that. So I'm going to look early enough in the day, and I'll put it on Twitter. Either I'm going to do CBR. If I can find some on CBR to roast, then we'll do that. But if not, I'm most likely, if I can't find, I'll just do Bad Boys 3 review. So anyways, guys, end it here. But that's the plan for tomorrow. Monday, I'll figure out what to do. Tuesday, we'll be doing the final of the Jurassic World trilogy rewrite. And this is probably going to be the big one, because I'm actually already working on a little little script. It's not going to be a script. It's just a little idea of where I'm going to go with it. This one's going to probably be the more extensive of the rewrites. So yeah, so I'll be doing that tomorrow. On Tuesday. Wednesday, for sure, I think I'm going to do a bad movie Wednesday, and we're going to do a fucking... Okay, here's the plan. If I do the CBR article tomorrow, we'll do Bad Boys 3 on Monday. So, that's the plan. But if not, I'll do that tomorrow, and I'll figure out what to do on Monday. But going back to Wednesday, so Wednesday, I'll be doing, for sure, Bad Movie Wednesday, and we're going to do No Holds Barred. Thursday, I'm going to do Pumpkinhead 3. And then I'll figure out what to do Friday. No, not figure out. No, what to do Friday. Friday, we're going to do the OG Planet of the Apes from 1968. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie, so that's so far my schedule this week. Monday is to be determined, because if I do the CBR article tomorrow, I'll do Bad Boys 3 on Monday. But if not, I'll do Bad Boys 3 tomorrow, and then Monday will be open. But if not, but that's Tuesday through Friday, I pretty much have an idea what I'm going to do. But anyways, guys, I'm going to end it here. All right, guys. Talk to y'all later. Peace.